Welcome to the recap show on the Baseball Awakening podcast with Geoff Rottmayer. Today we will discuss the lessons learned and the action items from yesterday's interview.
Hey guys, Geoff Rottmayer here with the Baseball Awakening recap show, where I share with you the biggest takeaways I got from my conversation with Butch Baccala, as well as how I plan to implement what I've learned with my players that train with me in my academy in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Again, as I always say, we want to hear from you because different things mean different things to different people. So it would be interesting to see how you guys interpreted something that Butch said or something that I'm going to say today. I will make a show reading your emails because we can all learn something from it. So that email is going to be Geoff, Geoff, at baseballawakening.com. So send me your thoughts, your comments, or your feedback. Okay, so Butch comes from 25 years of experience evaluating players, and he shared a lot of nuggets in this conversation. The first thing that I want to kind of relay is something that Butch said at the very end of the conversation that I think is great for people who are seeking to have success in anything. And he said, don't be a know-it-all. In a time where anybody can call themselves an expert, post content, too many fall into the trap that they think they have things all figured out. My comment is, for me, the more I learn, the more I realize how much I don't know. So if one doesn't feel that way, then personally I think there's a problem. But with that said, everyone has to start somewhere. But you have to keep learning and keep reaching out to guys and learn from their experiences. Butch has been in the game for a very long time, has a ton of experience that one can learn from, as well as everyone else that I've interviewed. And it's okay not to agree with everyone on everything, but you can still have a civil conversation. So anyway, that's my take on that. But now back to my conversation that I had with Butch. I asked Butch, I asked him about becoming a scout and the lessons that he learned doing so. And he said that the first 3 years are really just kind of your learning years, which in the reality, if you think about it, that first 3 years in anything that you do, it's really just learning a lot and then experiencing some things. But he said that that taught him how to work hard. And it's true. A lot of people think they work hard until they've been around people that work really hard. And I tell kids all the time this, that you probably don't work as hard as you think you do. Yeah, you're working hard when you're here at practice, but what are you doing outside of practice when nobody's watching to improve your game? It's the same thing here. The job of a scout, as Butch explained, is, you got to watch players, you got to write reports, and you got to project. So obviously, just like anything else, the more you do it, the better you get. But I love the hustle that he did. He said when he first started, he put on 25 tryout camps in his first year. That's awesome. In that time, he saw a lot of players, wrote a lot of reports. So, if anyone who's listening to this is wanting to become a scout or really anything, if you put in the work, whatever the core job is, in Butch's case, is watching games, writing reports, and projecting. So the more he did that, the better he got. That's the key. But then later on in the conversation, he said that he got an advice that it was to be a scout for 10 years before moving up the chain. Because at the 10-year mark, now he's seen enough players to compare players to other guys, which makes sense. If you watch guys and he reminds you of someone, then you can kind of look at that player's track record and say, yeah, and almost kind of predict what this guy's potential could be. Predicting cannot be easy. It's got to be extremely hard. So you almost have to rely on the whole comparison thing, which isn't, fair, I guess, but everybody's their own individual. But that's how they do it. And for the most part, it works out for him. It's a formula that works for him. So again, he had 10 years of really watching a lot of players, writing a lot of reports, and predicting. And now he has a database of guys that he can compare guys to that he goes and watch. And the other thing that Bush said that I really liked was he said he wanted to be his own guy. He didn't want to follow the crowd, be that type of guy. Just because these guys like him, it must mean that we all like him. This is where the whole trusting your eyes and your experience and kind of forcing yourself to really do your own homework and your own research on a guy. So I love that about it. And then later on, I went on, I asked him this, because this is something that I asked just about every scout, and to include John Kazanis, who I interviewed earlier, is what is the saying behind, if you're good, they'll find you? And because everybody kind of thinks they're good. But what happens is there's a lot of things that go into that, more than just, being able to hit 650 in high school. You've got to be able to, you got to play good competition for one. You've got to have all the tools and the skill set that they need, that they like. And a lot of kids don't understand, a lot of parents don't understand what those tools are, what the skill sets are, what they are looking for. And it becomes an issue because that's where you got to find people that can help you with that. But anyway, he said you got to play better competition. He wants the play to look easy to you. So if you're out there and the play looks easy, that's what he wants. A good plan and a good approach, good swing, stuff like that. So he said a lot of the same thing that John said. And it's all true, man. There's a way when you go and watch a kid that's a potential top draft pick, you can see the difference between that and the next guy. So if you're good, they'll find you. It definitely applies to the very, very rare exception guys who are, the Bryce Harper of the world, the Mike Trout. If those guys were in a jungle somewhere, they would have found them. So, but for everybody else, that's okay. We just got to work harder. We just got to work hard, put our work in, and trust our process. Get with the right team, and all the stuff will kind of come together. And then we got into the scouting aspect. So what are you looking for part. And he said it was important for him to be able to watch a guy practice and do a tryout or a showcase or whatever, because he wanted to see how a guy works. So he's watching how hard you work. So I tell my guys this all the time. If there was someone here watching you practice right now, would you be putting on your best performance? A lot of kids don't realize the perception that they put off, which is why it's important for coaches to bring that to their attention. Things like body language, energy, how they walk, how they talk, all that little stuff matters, but a kid needs to be brought, that needs to be brought to their attention. And then the other thing that he said that I really liked was he'd never been a believer in a player needing size. He said he wanted them to have strength. This is huge because that's what everyone who worked with kids say. You need strength. Your mechanics can be, you can be fundamentally sound, but not do much because you're not strong enough. Okay. So you need to put the work in the weight room. And this is a year-round deal. You see a lot of kids will stop lifting during the in-season. And essentially you lose what you've gained over the course of that off-season. And you're going to lose quite a bit during the season anyway. So you might as well try to at least halfway maintain what you've been able to do. I would say the same thing with putting in the extra work. And again, extra work doesn't always mean physical. This is making sure you're sitting down and reflecting on your games, on your week, and then come up with a game plan for next week. This is something that we're going to pick up a lot in my place is I'm making these guys have a journal, and we're going to write down our at-bats. We're going to write down our performance. We're going to write down our post-game evaluation. and we're going to sit down and we're going to go over it and try to stay on top of the emotional and the mental and the physical component of the game. It's so easy to lose focus or get too high if you're not doing what you want to do or if you don't have a plan. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to really focus in on reflecting last week. What did we do well? What we didn't do well? What's the plan for this week? And then what's the plan for game? What's our game plan? What are we going to execute? What are we going to do to get ourselves to continue to keep hitting or to break out of a mini slump that we're having? So I love that part. You got to you got to have your strength, and you got to work hard at all times. Butch said it. Butch has been doing this for 25 years. He's going to go watch you work, and he wants to see how strong you are. So I went on to ask, and I continue to ask about position players. And he said he was looking for easiness. Guys that can make the routine plays with great fluid movement and body control. Guys with strong arm. He liked the strong arm over range for the simple fact that if a player has great range, but he can't get guys out, then range kind of becomes an overused look of an evaluation tool. So having the strong arm and making those crazy range plays and getting guys out will be important. All these things that Butch talked about, they can all be developed. Butch alluded it to earlier, as well as myself. The key is you got to work at it. You got to work hard. We spent a lot of time working on the hitting and the pitching. In my state, Oklahoma, we're considered a cold state. But there's got to be time to improve your defensive work. And a lot of this can be done with just a ball and a wall. Believe me, I got a handful of guys that don't waste time when they come and train. And they're working on their defense whenever they're waiting for their offensive turn or waiting for their session to start or whatever it may be. They're using a ball and a wall, and they're working on their feet work. They're working on their hands. They just don't waste time. So it can be developed with just a ball and a wall. And then obviously when you get the opportunity to go out there and take live ground balls, you want to. But again, don't use the coldness as an excuse. Take a ball, get a wall, and get some work in and get better. And that's what's going to take to get guys like Butch to see you. He wants to see you work. He wants to see you have great body control, have great fluid movement, make the routine plays. That's what's going to take to get Butch and a lot of the other scouts to come watch you play. But at the same time, you need to find someone that's going to be honest with you on how you're doing with it and how your skill sets are, because it's not so cut and dry what these guys are looking for. It's not so easy to understand. That's where having guys like myself or guys like Walter Beatty, who I interviewed, or even Butch himself, these guys, or even Rob Bruno, these guys can all help you understand where you are, where you fit. I then got into asking Butch about, how you respond matters. Meaning, the coaches and the scouts that are coming to watch you play, and you're a pitcher, they can see that the shortstop made the error. They can see if you're hitting. They can see that the center fielder made an unbelievable dive to take that hit away. They see that. They understand that, which is why the stats don't tell the whole story. So that's the thing you got to remember is the guys that are coming to watch you play understand the game. They want to see how you're going to respond to things. Butch said it best. He explained that, the player playing under pressure brings different intangibles to the game, which is kind of a pretty interesting way of looking at it, because I haven't heard anybody explain it that way. But he's right. He's simply talking about how you respond, making adjustments, stuff like that. So I thought it was great. He also talked about, they're coming out to watch you play over and over and over and over again. So it's not like they're going to come watch you play one time and it's a make it or break it deal that time. They understand that you're kids. They understand that they're going to have, some emotional breakdowns, stuff like that. They're going to get very emotional on certain plays. But what they want to see is you're consistent in how you respond to things. You're mature, understanding that you're going to have your moments. They want to see how you're going to handle failure. So all this stuff, how you respond really, really matters. And then from there, I kind of jumped and I asked him, I said, so let's say you got a guy that can play a little bit. He can swing the bat, but he had no plan and no approach. What is your thought as a scout? And he said something that I hadn't quite heard before. He started off by saying that he doesn't care too much about guys swinging and missing on balls outside the zone. But he does get worried on guys swinging and missing on balls that are strikes and just missing pitches. And I think it's great because if you watch some of the better hitters, especially at the lower level, they don't swing and miss at the strikes that they swing at. So having the barrel control, the eye brain hand connection, the plate discipline, it's huge for guys like Bush. He pushed plate discipline pretty hard. The guys that can see the ball out of the hand, pick the ball up quick, can see balls and strikes, are able to make decisions quicker. So if the quicker they can see the ball, the quicker they can make a decision, which is important. And then he even said that there were guys who would chase the ball out of the zone, like guys like Vladimir and Torrey Hunter. But he said, he didn't care too much about that. He said the key was when they did swing at strikes, they did not miss. So this is a huge thing that we've been preaching to our players, is making sure that you're working very, very hard on your plate discipline. And when you're swinging at strikes, and when a strike comes, especially your pitch, you can't miss it. And again, this can be developed. You have your rep, the repetition of your swing. You have your plan. You have your approach. You are seeing the ball. All these things can be developed to help you develop the plate discipline, and then the ability to put the barrel on the baseball whenever a strike comes. The next thing that I asked him, and it was probably my favorite thing to ask because I have this conversation with kids and parents all the time. I asked the question was, can you scout confidence? And without hesitation, he immediately said yes, which is true. He said that the good players, the players that are really good, have a swagger about them that's different than the other guys. And it shows, in how they interact with their coaches, with their teammates, adults, and umpires. But the other thing that he said, he goes, I can see immediately players who don't have confidence. So confidence is number one in Butch's eye. And I'm sure it's very high up there in a lot of scouts' eye. Which is huge because this can be developed just like everything else that we've been talking about. This can be developed, but what we're missing, and this is what Bush and I talked about, what we're missing is the how-to part in coaching confidence. And he agreed with me, and he said a combination of things that I'm going to repeat exactly what he said because I love it. He said it's due to the coaches not being able to reach a kid communication-wise. And then the inability to teach kids, and kids are lost. And then he said that he's not big on guys buying into what he's doing, but big on coaches that know what he does and players believing in that coach, believing in what the coach is teaching. And then he said, and I think it's huge, when a player can be coached, coaches show them the technique, the mechanics, and making them better, the kids start to flourish and start to have all this belief in themselves. I love it, and I think he's right. Players these days are lost. There is so much information out there. It's crazy. There's so much information out there, and there's a lot of good information, but there's a lot of bad information too. And it's hard because we don't know who to trust. So this is where we have to find coaches that we trust, coaches, and then you got to believe in what they're teaching, because at the end of the day, the ones that believe in what they teach are going to allow the players to become the best version of themselves. you know what? Everyone is different. Which is why it makes the developing of players so challenging. And I love the challenge, but it's truly a challenge when you take the approach and you understand that everybody is different. And then lastly, what I want to talk about in my conversation with Bush, and I would encourage you guys to go back and listen to the conversation because there's so many golden nuggets that can help you with your players with understanding. Because not so often do you get a guy with 25 plus years of experience to share, the wisdom. So it's a great conversation. So anyways, the last part that I asked him, I said, if I was a guy and I wanted to get into scouting, what do I do? And he simply said, go to the ballpark every single day and start writing reports. And then when you find a player, write a report and submit it. So you not only are you going to you're getting the experience of watching players, but you're looking for guys that could potentially be a major league player at one point, potentially. So, and then he said, the important part of it is if you want to get into it, is the networking part. Network with the scout. Attend the winter meetings and go set up with meetings with guys who are in charge of hiring people. So in other words, he's saying you can be a scout if you want to, but you got to be proactive, just like anything else. So I'm gonna wrap up the recap show. Listen, I've listened to this conversation with Bush 9 to 10 times before I shared it with you all. And I still get something from it every time I listen to it. So it's great. So I would encourage you guys to listen and re-listen and even reach out to him. I mean, he's a very approachable guy. He wants to help. He's a very giving guy. He's just a great guy to know. So anyways, thank you for tuning in to my recap show with my conversation with Butch Baccala. Thank you.